So you love your partner, maybe enormously. But what when you love him more in his absence? And when you're together, somehow it feels hard to be around each other. Then you're not alone in wondering, if we love each other this much, why does everything feel so hard? I hear some version of this almost every week in my practice. And I think it points to one of the most damaging myths we have inherited about relationships. The idea that love is the thing that holds everything together. That if the love is real enough and strong enough, somehow everything else will just follow. It won't. And today, I want to talk with you about what actually holds a relationship together. If you're new here, I'm Andrea, I'm a couples therapist, and I help you build emotionally mature relationships your parents didn't get to have. Let's dive in. We didn't invent this idea ourselves. We inherited it from films, from music, from stories we were told as children about what true love actually looks like. When you think about it, the structure of every romantic story you ever heard of when you were growing up is the same. Two people find each other, they fall in love, they overcome something difficult, and then the story ends. Like they lived happily ever after. And then we see the credits roll. What happens after is never shown. But in reality, the after is where the actual relationship begins. And that part is harder and slightly less cinematic than everything before that. The myth tells us that love is the destination, something that we have to find, that once you find the right person and feel the right feeling, that is done. Like you solved the problem of loneliness. You found your person and now you can relax. But in real life, actual relationship isn't a destination. Relationship is what we co-create. It's practice of being with someone else. And love, the feeling of love, is more like a weather rather than a building like a Buckingham Palace. The feeling of love, it changes, it moves. There will be seasons when you feel more connected, when it's easier to feel that you have a love for one another. And seasons where you have to choose it deliberately, even when the feeling isn't that loud. The couples who survive, let's say, all those seasons are the ones who love each other more. They are the ones who build something underneath that love, the emotion of love, something structural, something that holds even when the feeling of love isn't actually like carrying them, like remember Aladdin on a magic carpet? So yeah, like that. I just want to be careful here because I'm not saying that love doesn't matter. It matters enormously. But sometimes we confuse love, the feeling, with love as a practice. And they are not the same thing. The feeling of love is real. We feel it throughout the body. It's highly valuable and it's worth protecting. But feelings are responsive. They respond to what is happening between you two. They respond to how safe you feel, how seen you feel, how often you have been hurt, and how those hurts were repaired. So the feeling of love is actually a byproduct of relationship health and not the cause of it. This is why couples often tell me that the love is gone. But what I actually see when we dive a bit deeper is that the safety is gone. Feeling seen and heard is gone. The sense of being known by this person is gone. And love, the felt experience of it, cannot survive for long in that type of environment. So when a couple comes to me and say, we love each other, but nothing is working, what I hear is the feeling still might be there, but the structure underneath is eroding. And they have been hoping that the feeling would be enough to hold everything together. It isn't, because it never really was. So if love isn't a foundation, what is? In my experience, both professional from couples therapy practice and from my personal experience from my 11-year-old marriage, there are three things that actually hold a relationship together when everything around it gets hard. The first thing is emotional safety. The sense that you can say what is true for you without it being weaponized. That you can be uncertain or afraid or angry or wrong, and that you would know that relationship will survive it. That your partner is not someone you need to manage or perform for, but someone you can actually be around with without editing yourself. I have a great example from my practice about this. And without disclosing any personal information, I will share something that might help you understand what I mean by this. So I have been working with a couple who had been together for 8 years, and they had built a beautiful life together by most external measures. But what she had learned slowly and without either of them noticing, that there were things she couldn't say to him simply because of the way he responded. He was more often than not defensive. He would withdraw, shut down, almost every time when she would brought up something that was of importance to her. And those situations, stacked over time, taught her that certain truths aren't very safe to talk about. So she stopped talking about them. And over those years of being in a relationship, those unsaid things slowly built a wall between them, a wall that neither of them consciously constructed. When emotional safety is missing, love doesn't disappear immediately. It just goes quiet. It waits, but it can only wait for so long. The second foundation is repair. Every relationship has ruptures, every single one. The couples who stay together and stay close are not the ones who fight less. They are the ones who know how to come back to each other after a fight. They are the ones who can say, ugh, that came out wrong. Or, I was more reactive than the situation deserved. Can I start over? Or simply, I hurt you and I'm sorry, followed by changed behavior. Repair is a skill. Unfortunately, most of us didn't learn how to repair because huge percentage of world's population have never seen it in their family of origin. Many of us grew up in homes where conflicts usually escalated with all the yelling and slamming of doors, or it was just, swept under the rug and never spoken of again. Neither of those is repair. Repair is a deliberate act of returning to connection after a disconnection and doing it timely before disconnection calcifies into distance. Closer to the event of disconnection, the better. The third foundation is commitment to growth. And this one might be the most uncomfortable one because the relationship that lasts, the one that actually deepens over time, requires both people to actually be looking inside of themselves, to ask not only what are you doing wrong, but also what I am bringing into this that actually isn't working. The couple I mentioned, what they discovered is not that actually they start loving each other more all of a sudden. It was that they were willing to look at their own patterns. He actually looked at how his emotional unavailability had trained her how to stop reaching for closeness. And she actually looked how her conflict avoidance had let years of resentment build without an honest conversation. That willingness to turn towards yourself with honesty is something that opens the door. Love didn't do that. Courage did. I want to give you something to take away from this if maybe some parts felt a little bit abstract. If you're in a relationship right now and something feels hard, not dramatic, not crisis level, just the quiet weight of maybe two people who aren't quite reaching each other, I would like you to ask yourself this question. What is one thing I know it's true about what's happening between us that I haven't said out loud yet. Not to blame, not as an accusation, just as information you've been holding privately that you know your partner doesn't have access to, because the unsaid things are almost always where the distance is living. And if you're someone who is single or someone who is between relationships and you're listening to this thinking about what you want next time, I want to offer you this reframe. Instead of asking, am I in love with this person? Practice also asking, do I feel emotionally safe with this person? Can I repair with this person? Are we both willing to grow? Those questions are far less romantic, I know. They are also far more predictive of whether this thing you're building will last. Love is real. I believe in it completely. I've seen it hold people together through things that should have broken them. But it holds them together because underneath that love, they build something. They build emotional safety, they build repair, and they build willingness to look closer at themselves and their own patterns. That's what does the heavy lifting. Love gets to be the reason, but there has to be a structure. If any of this resonated with something in your relationship, share it with your partner, not as a message, but as a starting point. I've watched this and I've been thinking about us. Can we talk? That one sentence has opened more honest conversations that most people would expect. And if you want to understand what the silent treatment is actually doing to your relationship underneath and why it's not the same as needing space, that's what my next video is all about. See you inside.